welcome and good Wednesday morning to all. It's episode 240 of the 359 podcast. I'm BVG, and in the house today I've got Ben Fox, Rubin, and Roger Cheng, the Dream Team.
Whoa.
Dream Team.
Dream Team. I don't know about that. Well, good morning.
What's up, guys?
It's gonna be
Not the
easiest show.
It's going to be a heavy show.
It's a heavy show today.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about, obviously, the big news of the day, Uber CEO Travis Kalanick taking a leave of absence and sort of the culture behind that.
And then, to lighten things up,
We're going to be talking about Gamergate. As you know, E3 is going on right now. Our own Ian Scher and Aaron Carson wrote a nice feature sort of tying Gamergate to the actions taken by some of the more extreme parts of Gamergate and how that influenced sort of the discourse that we had
during the
leading up
election.
during the elections, yeah.
Mhm.
So, Gamergate to Trump.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
My
I
God.
can only imagine what your comments are going to be like. Leave them in the comment section, though.
Troll word on.
Brian's going to be picking out the ones that are at least coherent and not crazy offensive.
It's fine. We'll probably focus mostly on Uber, or a good portion on Uber, because that's the big news of the day.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
But yeah, look,
happy to
we'll-
discuss
we'll-
trolls online.
we'll
too.
discuss either one, and we'll get to it in 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Brian?
All right, here we go for the recording of the podcast. Thanks for joining us on YouTube, live stream, and Periscope. We'll be right back to answer your questions in 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
So there's a big shakeup at Uber with CEO Travis Kalanick taking a leave of absence after an independent investigation recommended big changes following a slew of scandals that have pummeled the company. So a couple of questions we still need answered. Is this leave of absence just code for Kalanick leaving the company, or will he be back? And more importantly, does this make you want to use Lyft more?
I don't know. Are you asking me this?
Yes, I am asking you this.
I deleted my Uber app. Amid
So-
all the different scandals, I joined the delete Uber hashtag movement
Right.
because I didn't really use Uber all that much to begin with, and was very bothered by them potentially violating the Apple App Store privacy rules.
Yes.
This
there's
was
that.
one of the many controversies that people may have missed because there were so many.
Yes, so it was Kalanick, yelling at one of his drivers at one point in terms
Right.
of talking about compensation.
Lawsuit
This
with Google.
Lawsuit with Google. There was a slew of sexual harassment allegations. There was the blog post by a former Uber employee that talked about her time there,
Right.
just how stifling it was as a woman working in that environment.
Right, and that blog post kind of got the ball rolling, and
Yep.
it started a lot of digging, I would think, by a lot of reporters that found just unbelievably toxic work
Yep.
culture and environment there. There have been an enormous amount of, there's been a huge exodus of executives. Somehow Travis is surviving.
Yes.
And he's taking a quote-unquote leave of absence. If this was a public company, he would have been written
yeah.
out
It would
on
have
a
been gone.
rail
Yep.
so long ago. So do you think that he's going to survive this? Is he going to stay as CEO?
It's tough to say. I mean, if you look at those initial comments where he talks about Uber 2.0, this is, I guess, a company without Travis. He also talks about Travis 2.0.
Grown.
A more mature, grown-up Travis. So I feel like even there, he's kind of setting up the foundation for him to eventually return.
I think I don't see how that's even possible.
Right.
For the company to actually be able to move on. I think that that he needs to resign. But what are you going to do?
That's the other big question, though. Is this enough? Are these scandals and controversies enough for people to actually stop using Uber?
Yeah, maybe. So Farhad Manjoo at the New York Times brought up a very good point about this in a column yesterday. He said that it's up to all of us to fix Uber. That if we don't like what we've been reading about it, start using Lyft. Take a taxi.
Here's the problem, as I'm sure some commenters will attest, is Lyft isn't everywhere.
Mhm.
Lyft isn't in multiple countries where Uber is. That's part of the issue, right?
Right.
The ubiquity of Uber, and even sometimes the perception of the ubiquity of Uber, gives it an advantage over some of its competitors.
I agree.
So, all right, we've got to move on to Gamergate. Our own Ian Scher and Aaron Carson wrote about the controversial movement, which supporters say that they're fighting against the rise of needless political correctness in games and ethics in journalism, while some of the more extreme aspects of the movement, folks in the movement, have resorted to extreme actions like death threats, and just
Doxing,
doxing,
swatting,
generally
death threats.
trollish behavior. Ian and Aaron sort of link the rise of Gamergate and that culture as sort of the breeding ground for the kind of increasingly volatile discourse we had going into the presidential election. So in some ways, it's all tied back to Trump.
Yeah. What I think is at least somewhat heartening, but it's still way too early to tell, is that Facebook and Twitter, and I believe also Reddit, are at least making some effort to do something about, the toxicity that happens online.
Yes.
I'm all for the First Amendment. Obviously, I'm a reporter, I'm a journalist, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you can shout down or harass or, death threat people. Everybody deserves to have a say online.
Publicly listing, addresses and directing people to kill them. That's cool.
Doesn't sound very cool to me.
No. All right. So that's all the time we have. I know it's a huge issue. It's a lot of nuance. It's tough to sum down in 4 minutes.
Check out the story.
Check out the story and more on CNET. I'm Roger Cheng.
I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
Thanks for listening.
So let's keep the good times rolling.
Oh my God! So
good
one
reporting
point,
though, like solid referential. Just as me being not as indoctrinated into the reporting aspect of this, I'm just the button pusher here. That really did help bring a good blanket understanding to a lot of things that are very, very confusing. It's very messy.
There's a lot of nuance with Gamergate. Right? There are folks who believe in Gamergate who, honestly, I don't think they mean any harm. They actually believe in some of the kind of the more, I guess, the cleaner aspects of the movement, right? In terms of
it was a leaderless movement.
But there was definitely a large element, some element to Gamergate that was just toxic, that was volatile, that was just frankly dangerous, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
and the same thing you saw during the election. You saw directed mostly toward Hillary Clinton,
towards journalists,
toward a lot of reporters.
Yep.
But at the same time, I don't think that it's unjustified to point the finger at the platforms that were allowing a lot of this to happen.
Sure.
It really got to the point for Twitter, I would think especially, where it was too toxic of an asset for it to be an acquisition target. At one point, Disney was considering purchasing it, and then they backed off saying, the House of Mickey Mouse does not want to be involved in this.
Right.
So I think Twitter at least realized that it needed to do something to clean up its act and make itself a platform for everybody, as opposed to making itself a platform for just such
that weird
unfiltered
that subculture that
that was basically steamrolling everybody else's conversation. So
and it's sort of that element it sort of points to the death of polite discourse, right? We no longer are really allowed to disagree with each other. If you disagree with me, I need to stamp out your opinion because I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what, actually Facebook is probably a better example of that, right? Because your news feed,
you don't even know that people disagree with you.
Exactly. Your news feed is basically reinforcing your opinions all the time. It's stuff that you agree with because their algorithms know that you believe a certain thing, and they're going to push that rhetoric, push that opinion.
Yeah.
And so exactly. You don't even know that there is a disagreement or what you think is the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
man, this podcast is deep today.
Getting pretty deep.
Getting heavy.
Pretty deep.
Don't do it. Okay, so first and foremost, we want to give a quick shout out to Raj, who says, "Hey from Australia, keep up the great work." Thank you, Raj.
Hey, thanks, Raj.
Thank you very, very much.
Appreciate it.
Matthew Datcher says, "Is there any difference between Uber and Lyft from the passenger's perspective?" I suppose there are a few people who have not latched on to the ride-sharing trend that is out there.
Totally.
So maybe let's spell it out about how it works, and at least from the major markets that we've experienced, and how there really isn't terrible amount of difference.
No, there isn't. I think it's actually, for the consumer, it's pretty much the same experience. I would say
apps are actually shockingly similar.
Very similar, I know. I would say, again, especially depending on the market you're in, Lyft isn't as readily available. I know some drivers definitely do Uber and Lyft to make extra money. Most drivers do.
It seems to me that most drivers.
Here in New York,
what I see.
We found that out in Boston.
You're going to use both. Yeah.
I'm sure in SF and LA, that's definitely the case. But they're not in as many markets.
Yeah, as you said, there's at least the perception that Uber is much more ubiquitous, and therefore it gets the default position for a lot of people.
Yes, I think that's exactly what it is. It's sort of laziness that wins out, right? Uber happens to be there. It's it's on either your front page or your whatever. It's closer to the front of your home screen than Lyft usually is.
Right.
That is why you usually pick it.
Yeah, but at the same time, people don't like this. They may want to inconvenience themselves ever so slightly
Right.
if they don't agree with these types of business practices.
No, totally. And like voting with your feet, that's really ultimately
And with your wallet.
and
yeah.
with our wallet, that's really the only real power that we have ultimately with these types of companies. So yeah.
I mean, well, this was another point that I also wanted to make that we didn't get to because it's a 4-minute podcast, was that despite all the controversies, I still continue to believe that Uber will survive, like as a company.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
got a valuation
yeah.
of like $70 billion.
I mean, it's still like the most valuable startup in the world. So.
Right. So despite like the train wreck that's going on over there, I mean, like the thing that really bugs me on a personal level is that the CEO, no matter what happens, is going to walk away a very, very rich person. But, you know, there's nothing I can do about that.
No.
And that's okay. But whether he comes back as CEO or not.
So you've deleted Uber. I have not deleted Uber, but I also don't
Neither
use
do
it
I.
a whole
Yeah.
lot often. It's
yeah.
just sitting on my phone.
Especially in New York, I feel like I use cabs like 95% of the time. It's
That's
really
why
kind of
I never
fail-safe.
really used Uber.
Yeah.
And I deleted it, like I said during the podcast, mostly for privacy reasons, was that I was thinking if this is a company, apparently their violation of the privacy protocols in the App Store.
Yeah, just to clarify, I mean, what happened was, they were basically flagged for letting the app secretly identify and tag iPhone users even after the app was deleted from their
Right.
phones.
After you've deleted it,
Right.
they're still tracking you.
Which really is kind of
which is
totally
very,
messed up.
very
Terrible move.
problematic.
Yeah.
That's so.
It's
so
one
for
thing when
me
you
personally,
opt
I didn't want to
into
deal with
a
that.
tracked app. It's one thing when you opt in.
Yes.
It's another thing when you've actively said
if
you
you've
need to leave me
deleted
alone.
if you've deleted the app, I mean that is the ultimate opt out there, and to not respect that's pretty low.
Yeah, that was after I heard about that. I deleted it right after reading that story. I was like, I don't want to deal with a company like this.
So how do we? I mean, how they've since put a kibosh to that, but I mean,
Yes.
how would you even stop that? Would you have to have rebooted your entire phone?
I don't even know.
Tim
That's the thing.
Cook, the CEO of Apple, apparently looked Travis in the eye and was just like, I think I know what you're doing and you better stop or I'm going to boot you from the App Store.
Yeah.
And that's when they stopped. But that's the type of company this is, where they're literally going to get away with every single inch that they can until they're called out into the carpet. It's happened over and over and over again.
Yeah.
They force municipalities to drag them out because, it's completely against ordinances and laws in like those particular municipalities. And they're like, customers love us, so you make us leave. Make us. So,
I mean, and that's the hard thing from a user's perspective. I mean, myself, I just like the aspect of how Uber works as a functioning device.
Sure.
Any ride sharing. So let's just go ahead and take the brand out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so from my perspective, I work in production here at CNET and CBS Interactive. So believe it or not, we don't have a CNET van yet. I'm working on it.
A 359 van.
So
Just
when we
cruising around town.
So when you got to do field productions and I have to haul around a ton of equipment, it's nice to know that I can call an SUV. As much as I'm absolutely 100% in favor of just utilizing yellow cabs, I can't sit there and wait for 5 Priuses to go by
Right.
and hope that something large. I'd like to be able to easily call
you need predictability.
a appropriately sized vehicle for my needs. And that's why I like Uber. And 9 times out of 10, I've had great experiences with the drivers, with the actual ride itself, with the amenities, the experiences. So I almost feel really bad that now I kind of don't want to use it anymore for a lot of reasons.
I think that's why a lot of folks have been, telling people to switch to Lyft, because ultimately a lot of them are the same drivers.
Right.
Like,
It's the same
If you like the
experience.
experience, you probably get the same one on Lyft.
But you bring up a good point that there's this very obvious disconnect for people where they don't like the business practices of company X, but they don't want to stop using the services. I've heard it a lot covering Amazon. A lot of people seem to disagree with certain business practices of Amazon. They seem to think that it's a deal with the devil, where if you shop a lot at Amazon, you're essentially,
killing small business.
killing off your own main street to help this gigantic retailer. However,
But I mean, I've bought from main streets on Amazon.
that is a very good point. But the thing is that even if people really, really don't like certain things about Amazon, they feel like
They feel like
they're
they have
not
a choice, right?
Yeah, or they do it anyway because
Yeah.
of the convenience factor. I mean, like, these are technology companies. What is technology if not to help you be lazier? I mean, like, that's the whole point of technology. That's why we invented the wheel. Like,
That should be our tagline, really.
right. It's to help you be lazy.
Yep.
So we will
With
all
minutia.
be We will,
with minutia.
we will all be like those fat people in
Wall-E.
Wall-E.
very, very
Yeah.
soon. And
Like
I look forward. I for
squad
one.
goals.
I for one look forward to it.
All right, so before we wind things down, calling out to the chat if anybody is thinking like, I have deleted Uber, I will delete Uber, screw these guys, I want to defend them, whatever your perspective
or
is.
like I want to keep Uber. Like
Yeah.
I just enjoy the experience enough that I don't care about what's going on back.
File your comments
corporate side
away.
of
We'd
things.
love to hear from you. In the meantime, Abhi in the chat says, in India, we have Ola. Past month, Uber has blamed Ola for harassment case done under Uber cab driver. It was done by Ola to spoil the image of Uber in the country. It was insane to blame them without any proof.
Yeah, that was one of the
Great
controversies because, I mean, one of Kalanick's lieutenants obtained the medical report of the victim, the rape victim there.
Yep.
They looked it over, and because they had this conspiracy theory that Ola was doing this, somehow masterminded this to smear Uber's reputation in India, which...
Very
I don't
House
know.
of Cardsian.
Yeah, it
I
is,
mean, like,
right?
is that really like that sounds far-fetched?
It's pretty extreme, and it does kind of highlight sort of the mentality,
The
the bunker
paranoia.
mentality there. That at Uber, that like obviously, that they kind of need to change right now.
Well, that exec
a
is
big overhaul needs to be done.
that exec is now out.
Yeah.
But
That
I
exec,
don't
his
see-
boss, and now Kalanick is taking his leave of absence. Yeah.
I don't see a lot changing with Kalanick still, at the wheel. They need a new CEO. And they've needed a new CEO.
Mark my words, there's going to be a Law & Order episode about this year.
Sweet.
Oh yeah. See it.
Couple quick comments filing through. Rudiger says Uber should make a background check. Not a bad idea, but really
they-
the drivers aren't the ones in question.
I mean,
A background check on their CEO.
On
They
their
do.
CEO.
They do require background checks, but I think they're fairly minimal, and they've been fighting more stringent background checks, from what I understand. But yeah, the background check wouldn't really fix this particular problem, because the CEO would have probably cleared that background check.
Imagine Sagi says, I haven't
Imagine Sagi.
I haven't deleted it, but I use Lyft first now before Uber. So
Yeah.
fair enough.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
And lastly, Lim Ming Kwan is asking, are those two headphones Sennheiser HD202s? Yes, they are, sir. Very
Okay.
good.
Wow.
Very
good eye.
good eye.
Good eye.
Very good eye. We have good taste. You have good taste. All right. So at
That's
least
a
we get
positive way to end.
I
it.
know,
at least we
that's
get to wrap
total.
it up on a happy note.
Yes.
Talk about nice technology.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
Thank you, Lim
Mics.
Ming.
That's comfy on the ears.
You
So-
helped us save the day.
I know.
Let's before we wrap it up for next episode for tomorrow, let's all put our thinking caps on. Who's going to take over Uber now that Travis is out? Who's going to be the new CEO?
That's a good one. to
That's
think
a
about.
rhetorical question. Think about it. Meet us back here
Thank
tomorrow.
God you didn't put us on the spot. 'cause
The bald guy from Silicon Valley. You know that guy, Jack something?
Jack Barker,
Jack Barker.
Action Jack.
Action Jack is going to take
I can
over.
see it. I can
He's
see
gonna
it, man.
clean that place up.
He's
All
selling a box. A box will come with every ride. All right.
Bring us home.
If you liked anything you saw or heard here, check us out on CNET. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, and Google Play Music. See y'all tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks.